All right, welcome everyone to planning a backcountry ski tour 101 with the Mountain Training Center. I am so proud and glad to be joined by my friend Will today, and I can't wait to get into talking about backcountry skiing. So first we'll do a little introductions. All right,
Yeah,
Will.
sweet. So, hello everybody. I'm noticing a few people from the chat, which I'm psyched to see everybody. But my name's Will McKay. I am the owner and founder of the Mountain Training Center, and I'm an AMGA certified ski guide and a professional member of the Avalanche or American Avalanche Association.
Sweet. I'm Matt Madick. I am the senior marketing manager on the Onyx Backcountry team. Live in Carbondale, Colorado, and I am a splitboarder.
Boo!
Come
I'm a
on.
skier, so
So yeah, I also wanted to introduce Will a little bit further with his company, the Mountain Training Center, who is partnering with us on this webinar. The Mountain Training Center offers a variety of online self-paced courses designed to improve your mountain safety and skills. So whether you're a beginner or a seasoned professional, their curriculum focuses on backcountry education, including avalanche awareness, mapping techniques, and refreshers for avalanche safety certification. I have personally watched all of Will's courses and can vouch that they are incredible content. They can go into so many more detailed things than we can even cover within our Masterclass series that only runs an hour and is pretty map focused. So I highly recommend you take advantage. If you're an Onyx Backcountry Elite member, Will has partnered with us and offered a 30% discount. And we are going to have the link to this discount in the chat and the Elite Benefit Program deal that we've set up. But I also want to highlight that it is currently Black Friday season. If you do not have an Onyx Backcountry subscription, this QR code or Lance will be throwing it in the chat as well. We can get you set up with a 70% discount to Onyx Backcountry Premium or Elite. And doing the mental math, Will's Avalanche Awareness class is $100 MSRP. With Onyx Backcountry Elite, you save $30 on that. So if you buy Onyx Backcountry for 70% off, that's $30, and you can kind of get a buy one, get one free deal between our two deals that we have going. So just trying to hustle there.
we love a BOGO. We love a BOGO.
Cool. And then the other thing we have going on, which I'm sure you're all excited about, is I'm going to put the link to this in the chat. So yeah, Lance just put in the deal for the masterclass, but we also have a giveaway in this class as well. So I'm going to toss that in there right now. Fill out the form that you find right here. At the end of the class, we're going to give away 5 of Will's Avalanche Awareness course subscriptions, as well as 5 Onyx Backcountry hats. And I'll throw in a little bit of extra stickers and some other Onyx goodies in there as well for the 5 lucky winners. We'll be drawing them at the end of the class, but if you can't stick around to the end of it, that's all right. We're just going to email you afterwards anyway. So cool. So what are we going to get into this class? First, we're going to do the introduction, which we've actually just completed. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to dive into a handful of new things that we have in Onyx Backcountry heading into this winter. Will is going to lead an Onyx Backcountry demo where we're going to break down how to plan a backcountry tour and how to have a handful of options when you're heading out on a tour. I'm going to take it back over and we're going to do how to make sure you've taken that tour that you've planned and make sure that your cellular device is ready for when you're in the field, and then go over a handful of tools that you'll need to use while you're actually out on your backcountry tour. And then we're going to round it out with a giveaway and a Q&A at the end. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I wanted to discuss is an adjustment that we have recently made to our slope angle shading, which I'm kind of actually excited about. So it may seem like a pretty small change, but I think it actually can help you find a little bit of fun. So we've adjusted our slope angle shading to include slopes from 12 to 25 degrees, when previously it was 20 to 25 degrees. So the reason that we did that and we decided to do that is you can ski that terrain that's 12 to 25. It's going to be low angle, but you can still ride it. And the goal with that is to find, when you turn on the slope angle shading, a little bit more like larger patches of green that are considered low angle to help guide you to more low angle terrain when, avalanche danger is a little bit higher, when you're looking for just a more simple tour, etc. So that is one of the changes that we've made moving into this year. We've also made it a little bit easier to find low angle descents within our app. So when you hit the Discover tab and you're looking for all the ski tour regions, wherever your map is positioned, it's actually going to suggest a handful of low angle ski tour descents, prioritizing the descension part, and showing you like what are a handful of ones that are under 30 degrees within the app. So that way you can kind of like, it can guide you a little bit easier to finding those lighter tours. And then the other thing that we've added and we've been putting a lot of emphasis in is the expansion of our avalanche terrain exposure scale layers. So those layers we're going to be touching on a little bit more in detail in class. But what those layers are is this new layer that we've released with Onyx that helps you highlight avalanche terrain and classify it in a more specific way. And with this layer, because it's so new, in order to release it into these particular areas, we're working hand in hand with the regional forecasters for these zones and letting them put eyes on our computer modeling to kind of validate and like, let people know that it's representative of what they've experienced in these areas. So that way we can make sure that we're giving the correct information. So we've done a lot of work over the summer and we've added a lot of awesome areas that I am very excited to go ski in. So we'll go into a little bit more into the eights layer in the future, but if you've been waiting for that layer and you live in one of these areas, get very excited because you're going to get one of the layers that I'm most passionate about. Cool. And without further ado, we are going to get into the Onyx Backcountry app and start planning your demos.
Cool. All right.
I'm going to not share my screen.
Cool. Okay, sweet. I'll kind of set us up then for what we're going to be doing. I think it's useful, to give a basic demo of the app itself, but I think it's more useful to put it into practice. So what we'll do is we'll actually go in and I'm based in Salt Lake City, so we're going to go to the Utah Avalanche Center page. We're going to pull out one of our archived forecasts from last season because we have not started officially. I guess we've officially started forecasting, but we haven't been giving danger ratings yet. So I can't use anything right now, but I will use something from last winter and we'll run through a tour plan based off of that, but we'll deep dive into the forecast. So this is also kind of a double whammy of getting to see from maybe like a ski guide's perspective or an avalanche professional's perspective of reading an avalanche forecast and what to look out for. And then we'll integrate it into a map and try to create a cool ski day. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. We get there, Matt?
Yeah, I can see you, and I can see you hovering in front of the Onyx app. Looks pretty nifty. Look at this technology.
I love it. Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. Let's go into the Salt Lake City forecast. So this is the Utah Avalanche Center. I'm pulling a forecast from February 23rd, 2024. I tried to pick one that's maybe would prevent folks from ever going out and skiing in the first place. They might see an orange, a yellow, and a green on the danger rows and say, no way, we're not going out. So let's talk through it. We'll make some notes of what's important here and we'll continue through. So for Feb 23, 2024, the avalanche danger is considerable on mid and upper elevation slopes facing east and southeast for avalanche failing on a persistent weak layer buried 2 to 3 feet deep. There's moderate danger on slopes facing west through southeast for wet snow avalanches. The avalanche danger overall is moderate on wind-loaded slopes facing northwest and northeast. At the mid and upper elevations, low northerly slopes have low danger, otherwise known as green. So one big thing that I always tell students and folks recreating the backcountry, especially if you plan on ever traveling for ski touring, is take notice of your elevation bands for each forecasting center. So here in Salt Lake, our elevation bands are low elevations are 8,000 and below, mids are 8,000 and 9,500 feet, and then upper elevations are 9,500 and above. And in the Wasatch, where we're going to be basing this tour, we're primarily topping out at around 12,000 feet for our tallest peaks. So I know it's different in Colorado. It's a much higher elevation there, and then it's much lower elevation in Seattle. So something good to know there. So let's take a look at our weather and snow. Looks like we've mostly got clear skies around 6 a.m. Our forecasts usually come out around 7 officially here. Temps are around the teens. Winds are from the west and light going through mid elevations. What do we have on the docket for today? Well, we've got temps warming into the upper 20s at upper elevations and mid 30s at low elevations. Winds will be from the west and remain light with 11,000 foot or at 11,000 feet gusts into 20 miles an hour. Something with the temperature that we'll see as we're reading this is it's kind of late February, which means it's borderline late winter, meaning the sun's going to be a lot higher. So we're going to have a lot stronger solars on our south facing aspects. And then we've got some good storm from the week before. Primarily when folks are skiing and in the Wasatch, they're going to be in the upper Cottonwoods, but we're going to be kind of staying roughly near the Park City ridgeline. So looks like we've got about 10 to 17 inches of snow with 1.5 to 2 inches of SWE or snow water equivalency. How much water do we have in our dry snow? Recent avalanches. This is a good thing for us to see. We've got avalanche activity on Thursday, including a long-running slough in Main Porter and a larger avalanche at 10,000 feet on the Silver Fork headwall. Main Porter is actually pretty close to where we're going to be. So we'll take a look at that observation in a second. And then it looks like they've got another pretty good size one with a remote trigger breaking down to some faceted snow. And speaking of faceted snow, all our Colorado family, we've got our persistent weak glare. Classic. So this is not that classic though for the Wasatch. You'll notice that this thing is actually east through west, and it's completely skipping the north. Traditionally with those persistent weak glares, we see facets harbored on the north facing stuff. But for this setup, we've actually got a lot of south facing persistent weak glares, which is definitely a tricky thing to navigate. It really can throw people in the flux. So on our solar aspects, we've got this thin layer of ice, an ice crust, and then a thin layer of facets right above it, setting us up for that. So that probably means that there was a time where it got really, really warm and melted a bunch of snow on that south facing stuff. And then it dumped a big storm on it, and it's been cold and clear. So the facets have developed right above the ice crust, promoting for an interesting persistent weak glare. We can see that we've got a likely certainty. And then we've also got, it's in the small to medium range. We're dealing with a second problem. We got wet snow, just we talked about with strong sunshine and warm temps. This could be loose, wet avalanches, just roller balls. This could also be bigger slab avalanches. We noticed that is actually on the same, more or less the same aspects as the persistent weak glare. So more water onto a persistent weak glare can increase the chances that you'll have it fail at that weak glare. So something good to know. And then finally got wind drifted snow. Strong winds have kind of created some drifts up upper elevations all around the compass, and then from northwest to southeast at mid elevations. It's also good to know, I think, for folks, is that usually these problems are outlined in a layer of importance. So the PWL is the big red flashing light. We see it as the first one, and then it goes down to our wet snow problem, and then our wind drifted snow. Cool. And then before we rip on out of this forecast, let's take a look at Main Porter. And this was that avalanche it's pretty close to where we're going to set up our ski tour today. So it looks like, let's get a photo of it. Looks like it might have been a natural avalanche that occurred in the storm snow. So it's just something to know. It shows that there was a bunch of recent loading. But a good thing about storm snow and it occurring naturally is that this likely has healed itself over the past 24 hours. It's a storm slabs are usually that 24 to 48 hour range, unless something really weird's going on where those things will settle up and clean themselves out. And then, so with our forecast, just some critical things that I wrote down that we'll try to remember is that we've got that mid to late winter sun, so higher sun potential. We got our winds are light at 11K, around 20 miles an hour. So really not much, maybe just barely blowing the tops of some pine trees. Storm totals from the earlier in this week were 10 to 17 inches. So hopefully some pretty good skiing. And yeah, oddly enough, the south facing is a bit more dangerous for us today. And with that, we shall begin. Any questions on that forecast? What are you seeing, Matt? Am I missing anything?
It's looking like a more representative winter snowpack that what I usually experience in Colorado.
Perfect.
But I think for you, like how often, like I know you particularly, like how often are you reading the avalanche forecast? Like, are you reading this every morning with your coffee?
Oh
And
yeah.
how important do you think it is to to not just take the day's avalanche forecast, but look a little bit further back and really get a better idea of what the snow has been doing all season long.
Yeah, some people have the Bible. I've got the UAC bulletin. So I will read it every morning in the winter from until they stop. So I've been reading it since they started putting it out about a week ago, and I'll stop reading it probably in the beginning of May. I think that's a really good habit to develop. Forming a habit like that is great. And I find that the more people read the forecast, the more they can start to understand what the forecasters are actually saying. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Like even with different, as I travel more and get to go to different places to ride, you'll learn that every forecast center has different ways that they present this information. And I think everyone is also trying to figure out how to best convey it. So even like, if it's your backyard, get really familiar with those zones.
Yeah,
If it's somewhere that you're trying to go on a trip in a couple weeks or a month, like become acquainted with the way they present that information, as well as kind of like what the history is. So you can be prepared when you
totally.
arrive. And then
Totally.
also like, a lot of times like it almost seems daunting sometimes when you like jump right into an avalanche forecast, but whenever you ask yourself like where should we go ride? Like this is always the first piece of the puzzle is like where not where should you ride, but like where honestly are the mountains going to allow you to ride?
Yeah, where
Based on
shouldn't
the
you
avalanche
ride
forecast. Yeah, like
is
where
a better.
shouldn't you ride is another
Yeah,
thing you should be asking yourself through
I
this
think
process.
that's the best way to frame it is what am I not gonna do today based off of this, rather than what can I do. I think that sets us up for a good thought process. And I think that segues us perfectly. So let's go into Onyx, and I will take a good zoom out so we could see where we are. I'm over, currently spawning this video feed from somewhere over in Salt Lake, and then this is the Central Wasatch. Just a little layout for folks. Right here is Little Cottonwood Canyon. This is Big Cottonwood Canyon, right where my mouse is going. Then we've got Mill Creek Canyon. At the end of Little Cottonwood is where we have Alta, and at the end of Big Cottonwood is where we have Brighton. And then over on the east side of the mountains is where we got Park City. So we're going to actually be straying out of the Little Cottonwood, Big Cottonwood zone and going to Mill Creek, because I would actually choose this area to go ski based off of this forecast. So let's move in, and I'll pull up a little folder that I actually created for this and set ourselves up. So we got our Onyx Masterclass, show. Okay, cool. So we'll get in as we're working through this. We'll learn how to utilize all the tools in here. But let's just first talk about going on a ski tour and what we're trying to do. We're trying to go have fun, and we're also trying to come home safe, right? So in the ski guiding world and the operational snow world, there's a lot of talk about run lists. And I think that's a really effective thing that even just recreational folks should start trying to employ in their day-to-day tour planning. And what a run list is basically setting out parameters on a variety of runs in the area that you could potentially go ski and seeing if they align well with the forecast before you even go out. So with run lists, we'll typically label things as green light, yellow light, and red light. Green light means it's on the run list. We can go ski it no matter, unless there's some crazy thing that happens that really changes our opinions for the day. Like the green light terrain is we're very confident that's on the table to ski. It's going to be safe today. Yellow is we're kind of in that gray area. We're pretty sure that might be on the table, but we need to back it up with more information. Maybe that's digging a pit, maybe taking some more infield observations, stuff like that. And then there's the red light, or the red light terrain. That is stuff that we say hard no matter what we see, no matter what our ego tells us to do in the field, we will not go touch it. And that is a firm rule. Like you don't like put it at red and you're like, maybe we can move it to yellow. And then, it's so bluebird out and like the powder looks sick, we can move it to green. If it's red out of the gates, it's red all day. If it's green out of the gates, it has the potential to go to yellow. We can never downgrade it. We can only upgrade it to more dangerous. I think that's a good way to do it. So we'll practice in doing that first before we even start doing the tour. So we can see down here, I've got all these white pins or waypoints in here. If I click on one, we'll see that they come up with a name of something. So we got yellow jacket trees, we got Maine gobblers, we got Butler Basin. So just some good options right here. So if we're thinking about our forecast, what's one of the tools that we can utilize in Onyx immediately with regards to a persistent weak layer? So we got our persistent weak layer. I think skiing with a PWL is easy. We just don't go on it ever. You don't ever touch it, unless it's all around the compass and you're desperate. Then you can start finding stuff that's below 30 degrees without overhead stuff. But if it's on the map, I just avoid it. It's a game of exposure. You're playing with risks. I just don't even touch it. So that helps us a lot in Onyx. So we know that it is east to west at mid and upper elevations, right? So what we can do is go over into our layers. And if we've got our slope angle, which gives us that angle shading that Matt was talking about, but we've also got slope aspect. And this is really cool. This is easy for a PWL. So if we go to layer details, this is just going to showcase us in a different color gradient, the different direction that a slope is facing. So not that if you're looking at a slope, that means it's facing the other direction. So if you're skiing the slope and you're facing north while you're skiing it, that means the slope is facing north. We can see the color coding here. So our PWL is this teal to yellow to orange. So we can go through here and pick out any of these waypoints that are sitting on those colors and immediately mark them a different shade of color. So let's go to some of the obvious ones. You get that south facing PWL. Well, it looks like Butler Basin for sure is south facing, right? So I'll go in here, edit this thing. It's getting a red. We cannot touch that. No touchy. Similar thing goes for this guy, White Snake. There's a old Avalanche that occurred there that ended up in a fatality, actually in a pretty similar setup as this back in 2016. So we are gonna mark that as red as well. Ooh, no, don't discard, save. Okay, cool. So we got those two in there now. Looking over here, we got these teals over here. You're kind of bridging into that almost some of that more bluish purple up here, but still, if it's a PWL, we want to give it a wide berth. So we'll do the same thing for these. Going in red, saving it. Similar thing for this East Bowl Alexander. And this is just an easy thing so that if it's on the map, if you've got a bunch of runs listed on like a master map for you or something, you can just start to change these colors as the days go on. Now this one's interesting right here. We can see that we've got our red, but then we've got our blue. This is yellow jacket trees. Traditionally, when you ski yellow jacket trees, you start up from a little bit on the shoulder below this peak and ski it kind of fall line down this north facing stuff. So this is actually something I'd mark as green. We can maybe make a second waypoint over in the red and say no go for that. But on this north facing terrain right here, because the PWL is non-traditionally on the south, we can mark this as a green for us today. I like the green on here, Matt. I think it looks like a Shrek green. All right, so we got that. I'm taking a look at this thing. This is cabin run. It's looking a little bit purple. This is maybe something that we want to, cabin run's really easy to accidentally switch aspects when you're skiing it. It's a big open field and it's really fun to really open it up when you're skiing. So maybe we turn this one into a yellow, something that we need to kind of investigate more throughout the day. And then we've got these runs over here. We got bobsled. You ski this traditionally right here down this little gut right here. This is a good green one to have. It's pretty north facing throughout it. And then we got our main run that I'm kind of thinking probably looks the best. And this is main gobblers, pure north facing, nice consistent pitch. Then we got the gobbler saddle. And this thing is a little funky. Gobbler saddle is as it is on a saddle. So it has a propensity for a lot of wind loading. So maybe we'll mark that as yellow, and that's something that we need to investigate a bit more. Cool, Matt. How does this look?
It looks pretty sweet to me. I mean, there's a lot of really good options, I think, with that zone. And I think there's like a lot. It's like really good to try to like look at a whole drainage like that and just decide like based on the Avalanche report, like what should we look for and what should we avoid?
Yeah. I'm
curious. You have like the prefabricated ski runs filtered, correct? Do we have content in this basin? I've never skied here.
Yeah, let's see. I'm sure you do. You don't back in Mill Creek, but you got something going up Gobblers.
We got a little bit around there. Yeah. So like the beauty of this app too, and what Will's showcasing is kind of just like the ability to look at any terrain, whether we have it created in one of our curated guidebooks or not. And just kind of defining if you can ride it or not. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of my questions, was looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, now we're going blind again. Yeah, and I like doing this tactic with this stuff. It's really easy. It's really clear to see, okay, we're not allowed to ski any of these red zones. We could maybe ski some of the yellow. We need more info. And the greens we're pretty confident on. Yeah. Cool. Okay, let's take this off. And don't be confused by these green photos. This will make sense in a second. I should have chosen a different color for this, but I can only think so far ahead. Okay, let's turn off our slope aspect, see what it looks like. So also just to know, when we're over in this layers tab over here, we can choose our different base maps. So we got our topo map here. We got our hybrid, the topo with the lines, with the satellite imagery. And then we got satellite. And then depending on where you are, you can go to some recent imagery. This is going to be more recently updated snow stuff. So this is, or imagery. So this is a good way to predict where a PWL might form later on in the season. You can check out some early season satellite imagery. You've also got some snow specific imagery. And then luckily for us, our highest quality imagery is also some snow imagery. So it's a big plus in my book for the
Good for you
Wasatch.
if you like snow, maybe not so much if you like trail
Yeah,
sometimes.
for sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not much of a hunter, so.
And I love, so that recent imagery layer that you just showcased there is an elite feature through Onyx Backcountry. So if you're a premium user, this is one of the main reasons, like besides the private lands layer, that I think is worth the product cost, because as you can see, like what, I can't see the date on your
It's
screen share, but what
October
date is it?
28th to November 11th. So
November
a
11th.
2 week span, right?
Yeah, so every 2 weeks we have a new image that rolls out for all these areas, and as I can tell, it does not look like you guys are doing very well with your current snowpack. So
Okay. Well, it's all perspective, but it is not great, I would say. I think what Onyx does really well is a lot of other applications. You'll see that you can see this recent imagery thing, but they're plagued with a lot of cloud cover in there. Onyx does a pretty good job at filtering out the clouds for the recent imagery, and so I like that a lot. So really cool to dictate and figure out where a PWL might form. We can kind of see it now for us. We're in a dry spell, but we've got our low snow on there already. Another good use case for this is in the springtime. I use this up in Washington quite a bit when I go ski up there. I'm trying to figure out how far the snow has melted on those back roads to go ski the volcanoes. How am I going to have to bring a pair of trail runners to go walk up, or am I going to be able to skin from the car? It's another little use case, opposite time of the year. Yeah. All right. Let's swing back into our highest quality imagery. And let's start with our tour. So traditionally, when we start with our tour, we're going to be down over here, kind of near this terrace campground. There's a nice trail down here. And before we even start writing our thing, there's some rules that we want to do with our tour plan. We want to make sure, again, that it's as safe as possible, and that we also have a plan A and a plan B for both the up track, and plan A's and plan B's for the down track, or C's or D's or E's, however many you want to do it. I think a lot of folks fall into the trap sometimes of picking a really sick plan A and then picking a really mediocre plan B. And that can be pretty hard to convince yourself to bail and go ski something pretty mediocre comparatively. So I try to choose something it's going to be pretty fun regardless, so that I won't be tempted to continue on if the conditions are saying do not go. Right. So do you do something similar, Matt?
yeah, I personally have been like, I think that's really good advice, because there's a lot of times where like you have this objective in mind, and then your alternative is like riding back and having very mediocre day,
Yeah.
which is sometimes what you have to do.
Yeah.
But having that like medium spice option
Mhm.
is nice to have in your back pocket, and that's kind of why I think like the planning, like the pre-planning that we're doing right now, is a really good exercise.
Yeah.
So you don't just fixate on that one thing in that one line. You
Yeah.
get a better acquainted with the area, better acquainted with the snowpack, and then you are well versed for when you're out there and you're like, well,
Yeah.
what do I do? So
Totally.
you can never have too many options, and it's always awesome to do a lot of planning in advance.
Yeah. And you know, this seems complex and long, but I promise you that you do it more and more and it's gonna become really quick. So so let's get in there and start it off. So right down here is the Mill Creek parking lot. That's where we'll start a day off. And I actually really like to do this. This is more relevant maybe for the folks that, ski in Montana or deep, deep, deep in the backcountry of Colorado. But I like to put a marker on the trailhead so that I can get home eventually. So we'll do that. We'll do our stuff in blue here. And we'll just label it trailhead. So I got my marker from over here, my waypoint over on the right-hand side. You can drag and drop it over there, mark trailhead. You can put in some notes, add some photos if you want. And then folders, I'm going to add it to our Onyx Masterclass, which I'm going to share this folder with folks. So if you're one of the lucky few living in Salt Lake, you might get to go ski this thing this winter. But no promise if the conditions are good when you go out. I don't deliver the conditions. I deliver the terrain. Okay, so we got our trailhead in there. We got that marked. Nice. We got our coordinates, and we have that all set. So going in here, we can now start to build a route. So we can click on the top icon, build route, and we've got the option of snap to and point draw. And I think snap to is really helpful. A lot of this tour that we're going to be going on is actually utilizing a summer trail. So it's going to be really convenient, but then we can go to point draw when we deviate off that summer trail to make kind of quests on our own. So you'll see what the snap to does. If we click, it's just going to follow this pre-established line right up this Porter Fork Trail. This is a pretty big trail. It's like a summer road. Honestly, there's a bunch of cabins up here, so it's easy to access. It's not dangerous back here. You're not really in a whole bunch of avalanche terrain going through here. And maybe we start there. Let's go toggle our slope angle so that we can do a vibe check on the map.
Yeah, that helps tell a different story than kind of what I was like noticing from that top-down view as well.
Mm-hmm. And you'll also see in this, I'm a big fan of building everything in 2D map first and then psyching myself up with 3D. I think it's easier. It's just a personal choice, but I like going from 2D and then building our way up to 3D. But we can see that we've got a fair amount of steep terrain, and this seems a lot more treacherous looking at it right here. We got that 45 to 45 plus. There are homes right here, whether that's a good decision to build them there or not, but we've got at least the wall of houses blocking us from any avalanche terrain here. And remember, we're on north facing stuff right now, low danger, so we shouldn't have too much of a worry. Let's toggle that off real quick, and we'll hop back on there in a second. Okay, so our first key point here is we're gonna want to go up Bowman Fork. And if we're trying to get to, before we even click over there, if we're trying to get to Gobblers, which is kind of my plan A for the day, we're going to utilize some of these summer roads. We can see it we got a general one tracking over here all the way through this drainage, which is really convenient, but it also gives us some good layouts to do some lookouts and good resting breaks. Some other options you could do is maybe even go back through this whole Yellow Jacket Gulch. This is way more boring and you're in the trees the entire time. It's not nearly as scenic, so I don't like going up this way. You also get a better sense of the conditions kind of taking it high. If you're stuck down in the valley floor the whole time, you can't really get a good feel for what's going on above. So I like to get up on ridges as soon as I can just to see what's going on, especially if they're forecasting a wind slab problem. All right. Move ourselves over here. So we're snap toing over here. And as I'm going, you can see on the left, our route is actually building itself, showing us the increases in elevation. Taking a look at here. Okay, cool. This is good to know. Whenever we see switchbacks like this on a summer trail, that means it's probably pretty steep, right? So let's finish this thing right here and let's toggle our slope angle. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we got our slope angle here. Looks pretty steep, more green, yellowish right here. So still pretty good terrain for us. Definitely cresting up here. But again, this is, if we toggle over to our slope aspect, north facing terrain, this is not where our persistent weak layer is. We actually don't have anything, any avalanche problems here, because we see that White Fir Pass is actually at 7766, which is our low elevation band still. So we're still sitting pretty in terms of this. Now I'm going to just save this one temporarily. And this is a good first spot. So Matt, when you're ski touring with buddies, when do you usually take a break? Are you kind of an I don't ever drink water and I don't ever eat food, or are you like every 25 minutes?
And some days I feel like I'm in that camp, but a lot of days I feel like I am in the need to drink water every now
Yeah.
and again. And I think like even for this first leg, like this is another thing that I'm really obsessive about with like Onyx and mapping tools is just getting a better understanding of your elevation and your distance.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
I think it's totally a part of like being in tune with your group, but it's also kind of being realistic with like, all right. So like we get this question a lot. I'm sure someone's actually typing it right now. Looking at this distance and elevation, like how do you get a better understanding of how long it'll take you to travel through this?
Yeah, so a lot of this is personal preference. There's a
Mhm.
really dorky guiding thing called the Munter calculation, and it's like it's. I'm not going to try to do the math right now, but it basically takes your distance times your elevation gain times your sport that you're in, and it puts out a calculation for you on estimated time to completion. But I generally find that I'm hoping to be around. I think if you're moving well for all day, that's like it can for me. That's usually like 1,000 feet an hour. Obviously, if I'm going with the fast friends, we're going to be going faster than that. But that's a good healthy pace for a full ski tour day. And I think it depends upon elevation gain more than horizontal distance. I could go 5 miles and gain 300 feet, and my legs would probably feel fine. But I'll definitely be feeling it more after 1,500 feet of climbing in only 2 miles, right? So just stopping us here, and this might be a bit of a disjointed ski tour, just line because we're going to do some special things in here. But this is going to be for hitting the pass up here. If we go to our um, hybrid topo, you can see these topo lines actually indicate a ridge line right here, right? So we can see these little circles here are going to generally indicate peaks. So off the little arms of these are going to be the ridge lines. So we can kind of see this thing climbing up here. So if we're on the ridge line, that's our first time to check out conditions for the day, right? So I like to go in here then and then create another waypoint. And this might be just a first place that can be a decision point, a critical decision point. Maybe we'll call it lookout number 1. This would be a good place to eat some food, drink some water. And we could just save that there saying, okay, this is where we'll check conditions. We know it's there. We're also backtracking ourselves so that we have waypoints if we're trying to get back the same way for some reason. Let's go back to satellite. All right, topo lines off. Cool. Okay, now we're kind of getting into some stuff where we got to make some decisions. So I think Yellow Jacket Ski, the trees here, it's a really fun line. I believe it's about 400 vertical feet from the top of this peak down. So I say that we try to make this happen as an option for the day. Maybe we don't hit it as on the way up for our first piece, or maybe we do it for a down ski, but we'll just put it on the map just in case. And we won't determine what we're really feeling yet until we're finished with the tour for plan A's and plan B's. So I'm going to go in here. We're going to edit, zoom in. And this is where we're going to start doing our point draw. So we can take this little track down here and let's put our slope angle shading, see what we're working with. We're still at that low elevation band here, so we're not really worried about the persistent weak layer on that south facing aspects here. But if we were, we can showcase how we'd avoid that. So in this scenario, you'd probably be pretty safe just touring up the gut here and then working your way up here. But if we wanted to avoid that, we could point draw and go up this ridge. We can see that the ridge is outlined in green, so low angle. And this is actually one of my more favorite ways to get up here. Working our way up, kind of threading the needle on this ridge. It looks like a thin line from here, but you can trust that it's about 30 to 40 feet wide up there. So you got some good margins. And we're just going to work our way up the top of this ski run. This is now a great spot where we can save it. And we'll say up to Yellow Jacket. And we'll put this in we'll save. We'll add to our folder, Onyx Masterclass. Route added to folder. Cool. Okay, we got our route up there. That's great. We got one of our options for the day. We greenlit this north-facing terrain right here. So now this is actually a great vantage point to look at our other green terrain. You can actually see clear over this little subridge that exists here, 2 main gobblers. And I also totally spaced on showing you this, but we've got this green dot in here. These little cameras, I actually uploaded some photos earlier. of what this terrain actually looks like back there. So on that up track, even though it's pretty steep, we're not really dealing with slab avalanche problems here because it's too thick to ski through. And you'll see that over here, we added one for gobblers as well, for main gobblers. And you can see what main gobblers typically looks like. Tell me that does not look like fun skiing, but you can see this guy vision questing in the middle, just going straight up the gut of this thing. It's definitely not the way you usually ski it, but we'll try not to do what he's doing. But he was definitely having a good time this time. I like to add in the photos sometimes at these waypoints where you can take vantage point photos and just add them to like your master map or something, so that you can always know what the terrain looks like from specific areas. I also do it for very critical junctures. Like if there's like a very distinct left turn that I was like, that needs to happen every time I go ski here, I'll take a photo of that left turn and add it into my map. Yeah. Do you ever do anything like that, Matt?
Oh yeah. I think like that's one thing as I build out my own custom areas is really like highlighting terrain features. If there's like hazards or even if there's like downed logs in parts of certain areas where you need to kind of squeeze through, I
Mm-hmm.
often will build them so I can share them with my friends when they ask for beta. So
Yeah, totally.
picture's worth 1,000 words. So like adding photos to your waypoints is like a huge unlock. I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
do it for a lot of random things too, but
All the time. I add a lot of funny photos. If I see like
yeah.
some pretty weird stuff going on the wall, I take a photo of it and put it on my map, and then every time I see it. So one thing we could do here now is we could add another little route. Just not that one. We go to our builder route and just click from over here, just getting us over to the top of this cabin run feature. This is one that we would need to evaluate more. So we could maybe just put this track in and just say, hey, this is our potential. We'll make it yellow. And then we'll just add it to the folder. And that's just getting us access over to that thing that we yellow lighted, right? Again, that thing would need more clarity before we did anything. So let's take off our slope angle shading. Well, let's take a look. Okay, so we got this over here. That's great. We got our ski run in here. We know where that is. And we can quickly just add a little ski run here, just so we see it visually where we're going. Usually you ski it down to about here. We'll make that thing teal, and we'll call this option number 1. Save. Add to folder, Onyx Masterclass. All right, got our route added to our folder. Sweet. So we got something on the table. Now we want to make sure that the next thing that we put on is as cool or cooler than the other one. We don't want to make it too drastically boring, so we'll do that now. So let's go back to our white fur pass where we took that decision point, and let's go hop back on that summer trail to get over to main gobblers. You can see if we work through the slope angle right here, we're going to be traveling down here on some south facing terrain, but we're still below that low elevation band. So, or we're in that low elevation band. So we're not worried there. We're gonna travel up some north facing to get about to the Bowman Trail overlook. And then we'll work our way along this summer trail until we get down to main gobbler. So I'll just create that right now. Let's create our point. All right. Point draw. Actually, we can do our snap too, because we got our trail.
Yeah, and really bouncing between that snap to
yeah.
and the point draws is kind of the secret to using that tool.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel like if you're not knowledgeable about the point draw switch, like you're gonna find it trying to like it'll wrap like 100 miles sometimes trying to make a line connect. Which sometimes you just kind of have to override it with a point draw.
Yeah, and and I'm not trying to be a shill right now. I think Onyx's point draw and snap to. The snap to is actually a bit better than some other applications. It's the least, it's like not glitchy compared to the other ones, I'd say. Yeah.
And it's nice because it can hover like those pre-existing trails. Like you can lose so much fidelity in terms of mileage when you start like cutting those little micro turns in a
Yeah.
trail. So yeah, I've done that before with a straight line. You're like, I thought it was a mile, but it's really a mile and a half. And you're
Right.
like, okay, that makes a
Totally.
huge difference.
Totally. Okay, so I mapped this thing out. Let's just add it to the folder really quick, and then we'll discuss why I went this way.
Okay.
So we got it in there. And that's all making sense to you, right? We've got we're still kind of in that low elevation band right here, so we're not too worried about crossing the south facing aspect right here. But now over here we're definitely kind of cresting into that mid mid elevation band, and we'll pretty quickly get up to that upper elevation band in here. So this track that we took up that north face and stuff, nice and clean for us, even though it's a little steep in here. If there's not a real problem on it, we should be good. We're also following that summer trail, so it should be generally flat. Bowman Trail overlook, another good spot to maybe put a waypoint. If you wanted to, we could just drop one in there. Say it's another rest spot or lookout number 2. Add it in there, save, add to folder. That's maybe another good time to take a look at stuff, take a sip of water, eat some food. I think it's good sometimes to add the food spots because I very easily will not remember to eat pretty consistently, and that's not good for me. And then we make our way through here through some more mellow green terrain, and that green, remember, it's the 12 to 25. It's no longer, what was it, 21 before that I went down to, or 20?
It was 20 before. Now
Yeah,
it's 12.
so this could be real flat right here, and we got this little, we're threading it on some nice low angle terrain, and now we got to cross a gully over here. We wouldn't be super worried about this small patch right here, I'd say. I'd feel pretty comfy getting into this little bit of this drainage and maybe crossing it over there, just finding a little creek spot to cross. So we'll do that, and we'll get down to where we took our photo. Actually, we'll just continue to do this one. That'll make more sense. Edit, zoom. Point draw. All right, we're gonna cross over here, just lightly touch our steep terrain. But again, we can toggle just to showcase that, it is steeper up there. So traditionally you wanna be like, okay, maybe that's some overhead hazard for us. But again, with our slope aspect, where that's really sitting in that north facing terrain, and that's more or less aside from some isolated low likelihood wind slabs, which would probably be up on the top of the ridge more than anything, we wouldn't be dealing with much here. So if this was like a persistent weak layer on this north facing stuff, I definitely would not cross all the way under here, right? Okay, cool. Let's make our way over to this little area, and this will be our up track. You can see if we turn on our hybrid, we got this like sub ridge that rocks up this thing, kind of holding the edge of this this red shade right here all the way up to the top of the peak, and that's where we're going to try to get to. Not try, succeed. We shall get up there. There's no turning back now. No, there always is a chance to turn back. You don't have to shove the square into the circle hole. Okay, so we're in there, and if I'm going up this terrain, let's do our slope angle shading. You can always, put, we call it the Wasatch booter or the Teton hardman booter or skin track, where they just make the skin track go straight up a really steep slope. That's cool if you can do it, but also you'll be able to ski for a lot longer in the day if you just take it nice and mellow. So let's try to make it mellow. So we got our point draw on still, and let's just work our way up this flatter terrain, kind of hugging this steeper purple. Whenever I see purple on these maps, especially in the Wasatch, it's really an indicator of rocks more than anything in like small cliff bands. Some areas like Washington, you'll actually see that purple showcase skiable terrain because snow holds on to those terrain features a lot more due to the moisture content in the snow. But here in the Wasatch, especially this year, or this year when this forecast is from, it's not going to be the case. Okay, we can see over here. Awesome. And now we're making our way up here. Boom, boom, boom. Top of it. Let's save that. Add it to our folder. Onyx Masterclass. Oh, they're already added in there. Cool. Easy. Sweet. So we got that route up there now, and we're on the top of Main Gobblers, which is pretty sweet. Now, here begs the question. Let's look at our forecast really quick again. We've avoided more or less our wet snow. Hopefully we're hustling in the morning, so any of the south facing stuff that we're crossing, we're not going to be getting too hot on. But we got our wind drifted snow up there, and it's something worthwhile to think about. If we toggle off our slope angle shading, we can see that we're on top of the ridge. There's some loose trees up here. I'd say for the most part, I would want a little bit denser trees than this. I'd want something more akin to what we see where our skin track's going up here to really eliminate the not eliminate, but reduce the threat of the wind slab forming quite a bit. When I see these thin trees right here, I'm like, oh, it's just pockety enough that, it's not going to be a widespread wind slab, right? Likely. It's not going to have that much connectivity throughout this top section, but it could be pockety and it could warrant some careful skiing through this part. It's also a chance right here, you could take a look up there, and if you're pretty savvy with your eyes, you can maybe make the determination that it's not the move. And if it's not the move, well, luckily this little up track, we kept it in the green, so it's easy to ski down, so we can just ski that as a backup option to the drainage. Yeah, how's that sound, Matt?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's freaking just give us a little pinner straight down. Let's go our point draw. Boom. Right down main gobblers. Put her in teal. We can see that we've got about a 1,200-foot ski line right there. Pretty nice, right? And this is something that's easy to just go back and ski once again. Go do a second lap if we already got the Skinner put in there. This is another thing we chatted about, where we could go take our old ski tour that we took out of here and take it back and maybe go put something up this little ridge right here and go ski yellow jacket trees. I think for me, what I would probably do in this setup is I'd ski yellow jacket first, come down, hit this trail back, and then go ski main gobblers. I like to ski as I'm going out, rather than skiing something far and then skiing it on the way back. But that's just kind of personal preference, not a hard and fast rule by any means. Yeah, so that's kind of like, we got our plan A, we got our plan B, we got all the stuff that we know that we're not allowed to see here. A cool function that you'll see in Onyx frequently, in some of the zones as they work with the local Avalanche bulletins, is you've got these kind of scary Avalanche death icons. This is a really historical avalanche that occurred here in 2021. You can see the stats here. This is the Wilson Glades Avalanche. 7 backcountry tours caught, 1 partially buried, 2 buried, 4 buried, and 4 buried and killed. So 2 were basically rescued from this. That 1 partially buried person rescued 1, and then the 2 of them rescued a second, and then 4 were buried and killed. Which is really crazy about this instance in particular is that it was actually 2 separate parties. So 1 was touring up the slope, 1 was skiing down. And now that we're kind of familiar with this terrain, you can see that you're coming from a drainage. So they came from Mill Creek. One of the parties came from Mill Creek skiing up here. The other party came from Big Cottonwood over here. So they had no idea that they were there together. They didn't know each other at all. No, they didn't know anybody was skiing there. And yeah, it was just a horrible situation that occurred a couple of years ago. But it's really interesting to see those death or fatality icons. And then you can go to the UAC website or wherever they're pulling this from. I believe you pull it from the CAIC database, right?
Yeah, CIC has a resource that consolidates all the avalanche fatalities that have occurred in the United States. We also have partnered with UAC to integrate avalanche observations, which is fairly unique to Utah. It's something that we've partnered directly with them on. So that's also, I'm not sure if there's any around here, maybe more in like Little Cottonwood, but we'll actually showcase where avalanche observations have been submitted. So it's always really useful in Utah to look at that as well, because like if you're looking at this line right now, it'll make that a little bit more apparent when you're looking at a line, you're saying, oh wow, that thing slid this week. And it can give you a better like visual, especially if you're not as familiar with the zones.
Yeah. Here, let's go over. I know
there's some
I know where some people have been trying to ski, and they've definitely been trying to ski back here in Cardiff. So you can see this is what Matt's talking about. We got some observations on here, so you can view the original ob, which I think is quite sick. And we can see one of the local legends, Mark White, playing us some stuff back here. Good heavy wind transport back in the Cardiac Ridge zone. Look at those things. It's pretty. But it takes you to the forecasting center, so you can actually get the observations as they come in. Are they updated as they are submitted?
Yeah, and they expire, I think it's 7 days, maybe 10 days after. So I mean, if we didn't have that, then the map would just be like a huge ball of observations, because thankfully a lot of people are submitting their observations to avalanche centers, and also submit your observations to avalanche centers, because the more information we all have, the more they have, the better they can report on what's
this is also quite a sneaky way to figure out where early season snow is probably good. Look at this. If we go to our recent imagery, Oh, would you look at that? Where are people skiing? Right
Hmm.
where the obs are, of course. Classic, right?
If there's enough snow to ride, there's enough snow to slide.
It's
So
true.
keep that in mind.
All right, let's
Um,
go. Let's just move back here. You say what you're about to say. Go for it.
yeah, I was gonna say I would love to look at this line in 3D, and just kind of get a better lay of the land for it. So if you're on your mobile or your desktop, you'll see that there is this 3D button over there in the corner. And then when you're on a desktop, you have to hold your control button, and then you're kind of panning around. And like this is kind of like I wish I was better at reading topo lines, but like I feel like I'm the opposite of Will in that respect, where like now I feel like I have a lot better information by looking at this 3D map. But maybe I need to hone my topo skills a little bit better.
No,
But
no.
like
There's
this
two
always
types of
gets
people.
me excited to ride
There's
when I
two
look at
types of people
3D.
in this world. There are dorks, and then there are not dorks. You are not a dork. I am a dork for sure with maps. So I understand the stupid little lines, but this is the like I said. I find so the reason that I go 2D then to 3D is that I know myself and I can hype myself up a little too much too quickly if I build out my tour plan in 3D right away. So that's just a personal preference. Some people like just doing this out of the gates, but let's go back to the very end and you can see where we're starting down in Mill Creek. Try to be savvy with the control click. Working our way up, we can see this terrain over here. You can see how steep it kind of looks. Working through our dense forest, working our way up this ridge. We've got those yellow jacket trees right here. It looks nice and fun and steep. Good skiing. And then yeah, we can see the entirety of this thing. And we got that bright blue line showing us main gobblers right there.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
awesome.
this this avalanche icon's actually on the other side of the ridge.
No, just transparently showing through the mountain.
It's transparent. Not
That's I
a
mean that's really cool too because like I think looking at this as well, like it shows that what a good job you've done of marking off these particular zones, right? Like you look at a peak like this and you're like, there's so much to ride up here. And by having that color coded, like we're not riding off the back, we're not riding anywhere off this aspect right here. And then you have the yellow that's like a maybe on this aspect, but there's a couple really good, what we consider to be green options on here
yeah.
based on the Avalanche report.
Mhm.
And I think like this in general is such a great way to plan and again to have multiple options and to have multiple descents.
Yeah.
Um, this is kind of like the concept of building out your zone. And I think with this too, it's like if this is your first time going out here, like tread lightly, get a feel for the area, like build your map, customize it, like figure out how long it takes you to get to these certain points, and then continue to explore and to expand your mental map and then marking it up on your own map.
Yeah. I very much agree. And I'll also say this. It can easily be interpreted that we're seeing this green, yellow, red correlates with the danger rose colors. Not what we're doing here, right? So like this does not correlate with just the hazard rating for the day. This is our green, our yellow, and our red light terrain. What can we ski and what can we not ski? The avalanche forecast and the danger rose is a whole different ballgame. It informs this decision. This is not a representation of the actual colors for that.
I was curious if you'd like to throw on the avalanche terrain exposure scale layer.
Yeah, so that's a good thing right now. Now that we can see the whole thing. So eights was, first came up in the Canada world, and then trickles down to the US, as does most things in the snow science world. Here we've got the layer here, and let's go to details before we look. So it's the avalanche terrain exposure scale, classifies terrain based on terrain's potential for producing avalanches. And they've got multitudes of layers in here. Simple is traditionally going to be that low angle terrain and not much terrain traps, usually pretty big open glades, I'd say. That mellow hippie pow skin is where you're going to see that simple terrain. Challenging is where you find a lot, or I find and everybody else finds to be a lot of the probably the best skiing, but it is in challenging terrain. So that's just going to be indicated by this blue. Exposure to well-defined avalanche paths, starting zones, terrain traps, and overhead hazards. Options exist to reduce or eliminate exposure with careful route finding. And we got our black, which are complex or gray on the map. Exposure to multiple overlapping avalanche paths or large expanses of steep open terrain. And then extreme is like that cliff bands, glaciated terrain a lot of the times, hanging seracs and stuff. But we can see if we toggle off of this, you can see blue. We're quite a bit in that challenging terrain. Makes sense. Steep and tree. We're crossing some avalanche paths. It looks like Gobblers is even kind of touching into that complex a little bit right there. And maybe that's something that on a higher danger day, or we're experiencing like a more reactive wind slab up there, or storm slab, or PWL, maybe we wouldn't be touching that complex terrain. We want to stay away from that and stay in something a bit more simple. But for today's forecast, this seems pretty appropriate to me. What do you think?
I think so as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, there's definitely some complex and challenging terrain located in there.
Mm-hmm.
But based on the Avalanche report, it looks like it could be manageable. But
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think one of the main things that I think is the best about the Avalanche terrain exposure scale and the ratings that are established is it can change the vocabulary within your own group, right? Instead of saying like that looks sketchy or that looks steep or that looks dicey, or we're entering like more intense terrain, you can start using terms like we're entering challenging terrain, we're
Mm-hmm.
entering complex terrain, etc.
Right,
So,
right. Totally. I also think it just looks really pretty on a map. So might as well utilize it when you can.
yeah, and I've been using it a lot lately to plan in a traditional sense because like through my area education, you learn the slope angle and
Mm-hmm.
slope aspect, and you plan your courses this way. But like I've been using this layer to identify like, did I miss anything? Like, did I
Yeah.
miss a big avalanche run out that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge before when I was playing this tour? Um, so
Totally.
yeah, lot. I could probably talk for another whole hour on eights, so we probably
We
won't
don't want
keep
to put people through that. So
it.
they already have to
That's
listen to
most
me
weather
for
aren't.
this long, which is crazy. So we won't kill
Cool.
them with anything. So let's turn off eights and we got to finish it out, right? So we've got our
Yeah.
ski runs, we've got our yellow jacket trees, we've got our main gobblers. Now, how do we get out? Well, this, my friends, is probably the least fun exit that you can do. Or it is really fun if you enjoy a little bit of creek skiing. Um, so we got down here, and this is just going to be a nice simple thing, and I'll just do it kind of quick, where we're basically skiing out this creek drainage right here. You're just trying not to ski in the water. Hopefully it's snowed enough. Don't do this early season. Wait till, I think I find that this area skis quite well in this February timeframe. But you're going to be skiing out the creek here. You can always take this track back, but it's going to be a lot more elevation gain for you over the long run. So let's just go in here and start mapping our little exit. And we'll do it just the same way. And maybe we'll make it a fun pink as the end of the day. Point draw straight to the creek. There it is. Working through here, we'll put on the slope angle shading so that we can the slope angle shading is actually quite nice for creek beds because it accentuates them quite a bit. You'll usually see that really steep red, and as long as you're kind of in that, not always the gospel, but a good rule of thumb to follow. Skiing out this creek as we go. And this is also kind of a little bit of a local knowledge thing, knowing that the creek's there. You can see we're just really milking it all the way. And all the way back to Pole Canyon. Let's toggle off our slope angle shading. Go back to snap 2. Hopefully, once we get there, we're back on Porter Fork, and I think we're about to cross our original path. And we'll just end it right there. Now, if you wanted a consistent track, you could definitely do that and just edit the whole thing and then get a good judge for how far and the distance of everything. I hate myself, so I like to go add all the numbers up afterwards. But personal preference. But in general, I won't do the math in front of you right now. This is about a 4,000 foot ski tour. So to give you some good reference, and about, probably around 8 to 9 miles back, out and back. So a good long day in the backcountry. And yeah, this is
tour.
and it's super fun. I'll frequently go ski here. Mill Creek's a good little gem when everybody's stuck in the traffic in the canyons to come ski out here. So yeah, and that more or less concludes our tour. Last thing I got to do here, I believe, is just add this to the folder, and we will click it there, and then I'll copy and paste this and put it into our chat and make sure that everybody can add this and utilize it if they want. And just make sure everything, yep, that all looks good. Last one. Cool. All right. So just to share this thing, we can go to, let's click out of this and we can go to my content on the left-hand side. We got our Onyx Masterclass. This is where you can toggle this on or off. So I could say hide folder on map. It takes everything away aside from, look what I missed. Perfect. Easy. That's how we find it. So it'll just hide it from the entirety of the map, which is kind of nice. I'll show you why in a second. I'll show you one of my maps. That's extremely chaotic. Okay, so we got that. We can go to my content, masterclass. Now we can go share here. Share, and I can just copy this, copy link, and then I will, after I close the screen, I'll put it there, but I'll show you one of my maps, which is a little bit chaotic.
Yeah, the foldering really makes it a lot easier because there's also beneath that what you just showed is the show only this folder.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places that I recreate that I'm mountain biking on and hiking on, and then in the backcountry I have my own different lines. So like,
yeah,
having your organized content in these folders is it's a great thing. You might just show some of your hidden spots with this move here. Let's see.
I don't think I'm well. I'll show the entirety of the Wasatch is what I'm going to show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So painstakingly manual entries of everything. I've mapped out the entirety of the Wasatch. So this is how big your personal ski atlases can get. I love doing this. Again, I classify myself as like the dork or the nerd mapper, but I'll do this I'll create one of these ski atlases before the season starts in a new area if I'm going there. We'll do it for hut trips, all those independent things. And then I like to have this big master list that I share this with all my friends. So we all add some of our own up tracks in there, things that we think are cool. That way it can be a bit more of a community collaborative thing, right? Yeah. And I think that's about me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing the beta and sharing the Stoke. Yeah, if you want to put that link into the chat, I will show everybody how to get your phone ready for the field.
Cool.
And we'll go through that pretty quickly so we can get onto the Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Cool.
Have at it. Maybe you'll see me skiing there.
I hope so. And while I'm doing that, hold on, give me 1 second. Oh geez, technical difficulties killing the momentum of the webinar. Will, so are you going to be at USAW this year? I know we talked about that earlier.
I will. I think I was going to be tabling, but I don't think I'm going to be now, but I will be hanging around, potentially chilling at the Onyx booth a little bit.
Nice. We will have a booth there. If you guys are in Utah, please stop by and say hello.
Yeah.
And then I think I just got this. So let me just.
Everybody can give me all their criticism in person that way. So save it for there. Don't put it in the chat.
Everyone's a critic. Cool. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. iPod, iPhone. I'm aging myself. All right, let's see if this can work. Technology. Cool. All right, can you all see my screen? Yes? Thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
So
sorry,
yeah, everything.
That can talk.
So I just clicked that link on my phone, and everything that Will has built has just been seamlessly collaborated over here. So 2 things to note about when your friend sends you the beta for the line. One thing is that it is not two-way collaborative. So if you share a folder with somebody, you have sole control over it, and your friends can't collaboratively edit it yet. So that's just one thing to remember. I think for Will, like for your example with having your like very defined, very purpose-built maps, like if someone started playing with those, you'd feel like, get out of my sandbox.
No.
But yeah, for now, it is a great way to like share the beta. It's actually awesome too, because like, let's say you stop being friends with someone, you can see whoever accesses your folders and you can kick them out. So keep that in mind. So we have everything here in the Onyx map. Oh, my phone just went to sleep. So I'm just going to walk through like very briefly what all these buttons do. Can you see my mouse cursor on this?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, cool. Nice. Yep. So this is where you'll access like all of your settings, your account, everything like that can be managed here. This is a pretty standard technical menu. If you're looking to search for anything, that can be found here. So you can search for addresses, you can search for trailheads, you can search for towns, you can search for backcountry ski lines, you can search for quite a few things. If you're an elite user, you can actually search for private land and private land owners. So you can actually Google where your friends live, which is fun. Um, so yeah, this search bar is like a really great resource as well to like start your adventure. Moving over to this section over here, this is one of the most important sections. If you've been playing in Onyx and you're like, I don't see any backcountry ski lines, I just see hiking, it's probably because you haven't had the correct activity mode selected. So we have hiking trails, mountain bike trails, and climbing and ski touring. And when you click on all those different ones, it'll basically change the trail information that you get. So if you're not seeing the backcountry ski lines, it could be because you haven't selected ski tour mode. The other section that's really significant for finding tours is the Discover tab. What this will do is it'll start pulling up all of the guidebooks that we have in the app. And you can see it correlates just even at this view with like Avalanche reports, pulls in Snowtell data, etc. And these are all the guidebooks that we have in the app. We strive to get our guidebook content from published guidebook authors. So a majority of the ones that we have in our app right now are from Beacon guidebooks. They're the printed ones you can find at REI. We have a handful of other offers, and we're continuing to expand that offering as well. Our philosophy behind offering guidebooks for backcountry skiing is really partnering with people who are, generally guides in these areas and are very well versed in it versus relying on heat maps, user-generated content, etc. For the backcountry skiing. All the layers that we had shown in the class are shown here. And you can see all of the different layers represented here, very similar to what we were just going through. If you're ever confused too, we do have a legend. It's great to look into this and also figure out what you're looking at. Yeah, if you want to toggle into 3D, you can do that. And then you use your two thumbs and you can kind of tilt and pan and navigate around that way. And then this bottom section right here is the pretty important part for making sure you know where you are. One is hitting your offline maps right here. This is incredibly crucial before you go on a backcountry tour. So download your maps. Watch what I'm about to do. You click this offline maps button and you select new map. And then once you're in here, you'll have the ability to choose between a low, a medium, or a high resolution. I usually will go between medium or high for backcountry skiing. Generally, will prefer high. It does make the file size a lot bigger, but I think with this particular tour, it's worth it. Because when you download the high resolution, you can see like individual trees and a really high quality map when you're out of service. So you just want to make sure your entire tour is included in here. If this box isn't big enough, you can pinch like this and zoom out like you would on Google Maps, and you can cover the area. But note, as you get bigger, the size will increase. So we're looking at like over a gig now. I'm going to bring it back a little bit closer, and then we're going to hit next. You can name your maps. You can put notes with maps. I'm just going to save it like this. And then you're going to want to make sure this whole thing downloads. So when you're downloading your map, know that like most of what you're looking for will be available offline. All of the routes that we've created, you can see those offline. The guidebook content for backcountry ski lines that are included in the app, you can see those offline. Eights, slope angle, slope aspect, all that stuff works with you offline. And then you can flip between topo, hybrid, satellite, etc. So the number one way that I try to avoid frustration in my own life with knowing whether or not my map has actually downloaded properly and just really double checking that before I leave service is going back into this online maps section and then hitting this go offline button. And this will stop the app from using cellular data. So what I do is I go in here, I'll often check like satellite, and then I'll get in here and just be like, okay, like these trees are loading properly, everything looks good. And that way I'm confident that when I do leave service, I will have what I need to navigate. And just to note, I did see a question here earlier about 3D offline. We do not currently support 3D offline. It is something that we would like to support. So I do not have a timetable for it, but definitely something I'd like to see. But in the meantime, just know when you're out of service, you will not have 3D offline. So another part of building the maps in advance makes things a little bit better. And then the other thing, what was I going to say? Yeah, this app will work well in airplane mode as well. So like that will also do the offline mode. So when you're out of service, like I know like Will, you probably advocate for this. I do as well. Is like I like putting my phone in airplane mode to reduce beacon interference, and our app
Mhm.
is designed to work in airplane mode for that reason. Cool. Last thing I'll go over is the tracker. When you click this tracker button in the bottom corner and hit start, what it'll do is it'll start drawing a breadcrumb behind you as you're hiking around and walking. It'll keep track of your distance, your elevation gain, etc., and allow you to draw a breadcrumb behind you, very Hansel and Gretel style, so you know where you've been, where you're going, and it's a really good reference to have after your tour as well for when you go back into that area. Cool. And that is all I had with the preparing for the field. So the next thing I want to do is open it. Well, actually, I got one thing first. Hold on. I'll reshare my screen. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. Here's the exciting part. So one last chance. We have a 70% discount running. I am sorry. I noticed that I had a problem with the promo code on this QR code, but now it is working and it is working properly. So if you want to save 70% on Backcountry, use this link. And Lance, if you could put that as well as the giveaway into the chat, that would be great. We have a giveaway. We're going to be drawing here very shortly after the Q&A. So if you haven't entered yet, click that link. That
And
Lance will probably put in there shortly, and then we will draw a winner at the end.
Matt, maybe I'll give people the rundown of what we're offering from the training center.
Yeah,
So we got
let's do it.
our Avalanche awareness course, and this is great for somebody. I'd say it's the person who's looking to get ready for a rec one or an airy one. Somebody that, maybe just took a level one last year and just wants a season refresher. I think there's a classic saying of like, oh, just go read Staying Alive in Avalanche Terrain, the one of the Bibles of snow and avalanche books by Bruce Tremper, and I agree. That is it. See, got it on the camera. I agree. I think that's great, and I read that thing very frequently, and we'll flip through it. My goal with this thing is to kind of make a digitized version of that. That's a bit more engaging in video format. So this is a great season refresher, covering everything from the basics of tour planning all the way up to snow science, discussions on the avalanche triangle, how weather, terrain, and snowpack interact, and then as well as discussions on a lot of gear and rescue as well. So it's about 3 hours of listening to me talk. So if you did not like my voice, then definitely don't sign up. But if you did, then I'm your guy.
Yeah, and I've personally sat through that course. It goes by so fast. It is so fantastic. I really recommend that all of you check it out and take advantage of it, because I think it's professional grade. It reminds me of taking, my classes, and it's just such a great format. And it's broken down to little bite-sized pieces with quizzes to keep your ADHD brain on track.
Yeah.
Which
And the last thing about that is you'll get access for a full year, and you have the ability to ask questions in there, and I will be responding to them. So say you finish the course before December 1st. Well, if you want to go back and rewatch a bunch of stuff in February, you can do that, and you can continue to ask questions throughout the entirety of the year. So a bit more interactive than your traditional Avalanche course, I'd say.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Speaking of questions, we are now moving into the Q&A phase. If you could add a bunch of questions we can answer live into the Q&A, we would love to address any questions, concerns, anything. The floor is yours right now. So let's get some questions going.
Yeah, toss me some fastballs,
I know.
but no curveballs.
I'm surprised. Come on, guys. In the meantime, I'll set up this spinning wheel of prizes here. Okay, we got some.
Here, before we go into the Q&A, I'm just going to point this out that I've received 3 text messages now asking for my Wasatch map from folks that I've previously worked with. Every time it shows up, people want it, but
well,
yeah.
you did this to yourself. So.
I know, I always do.
Cool. We have some. We have a question from Shane about any suggestions on how to incorporate SWE measurements into route planning. Snow water equivalent. For another acronym.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd say it's more so. That's more so a question of persistent slabs and like a PWL and how reactive that thing might be. So it'd be cool to have a scale of some sort maybe in the future that showcases, recent SWE calculations to showcase maybe where in the range got the most water. But I think that's a quite intensive weather station ask. But I'd more so take the consideration in the forecast and pair it with the danger level of the persistent weak layer, but also utilize SWE. I use it more so for determining ski quality. So I want as little SWE in as much snow as humanly possible, because that's going to be our equation for blow or pow. We definitely don't want 1 inch of water in 6 inches of snow. Otherwise, we're skiing some Seattle or Sierra cement. So more so, I think about it a lot in terms of that ski quality aspect. We want that lower amounts of SWE for the most amount of snow that we can get for it. Yeah.
All right, I got another one. Any special considerations for skiing in a burn area?
Mm-hmm. Always wear a helmet. That's one consideration. I think wind can be a bigger factor in burn areas. So think about that big dense forest that we set that tour plan up. That is going to be a lot more resistant to slab formation and wind, because it's got foliage around it and trees and branches around it. But in burn zones, it reduces the amount of foliage, so you can see a lot more wind effect. It wouldn't necessarily maybe lead to more wind slab. There's a chance, but it would definitely impact the ski quality a lot more. I think burn zones, if it's in a wind deposited zone, there's a chance for there to be a lot more wind board or strategy, the Italian wind board word. So the ski quality could be impacted with it, but other special considerations, I think you treat it traditionally as similar as you would for a dense forest if it's a dense forest. There's not a whole bunch other than ski quality, I'd say.
I saw a really interesting presentation at Seesaw this year, that was about this specifically, and it was really of like how does the avalanche terrain alter after a fire? And they were running like avalanche runout models and like
Mm-hmm.
really reflecting on how the runouts can go significantly further
Mm-hmm.
after a fire because there's less stuff to hold them back.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that because one of the factors in our eights layer is force density.
Yeah.
So like that is one of the things too, where it's just like, how different will our models look when we run them before or after a fire?
Yeah.
So I have personally been affected with some of the areas that I've been riding in with fires recently, and it's weird. It's for every sport, for mountain biking,
Yeah.
for everything, and you're just like you have all these different considerations. There's more mudslides.
Mm-hmm.
There's more down trees. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, plug Solomon just came out with a movie called Caldor that just went out on YouTube today, and I think it's specifically focused on riding that burn area after that. I haven't seen it yet because I've been prepping for this webinar, but I think that one is like very in line with that question.
Yeah, and it's a good question, because it's like I'd love to see more research specifically on runouts for burn zones, because you're still keeping those big trees, which is going to be a lot of the anchoring material for breaking up consistent slabs that go across the slope. But it's a question of, yeah, I could see it a lot. Yeah, if there's less foliage, they could probably run a lot further. But for me, a lot of the times I'm thinking about ski quality and wind effect within those zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a bunch of questions now.
Oh God.
Favorite Onyx trick feature that you didn't already show us in the demo? I have one. We don't talk about it very much, and I wish I could show it right now. But if you are on your map on your phone and you put two fingers on it, like let's say you want to like go from a peak to a car and you just want a quick line with the distance of it. If you hold down two fingers on the map, it'll draw a line and it'll tell you how far it is. My favorite hidden secret feature of Onyx Backcountry.
Yeah.
Do you have
I'd say
one?
some. I'd say something similar. One thing I was showing the route tool or the route builder a lot, but I like the line tool just for quick calculations. You can just get the run or the run and the ride, the run and the rise of a slope pretty quick that way.
Oh, my Chrome just crashed. That's cool. Let's keep it going with another question. We got, hold on, I lost that too. Let's see. What are facets in the snowpack and how do they affect it? Are they part of
Mm,
the PWL?
Yeah, great question. Snow science heavy question. I think there's two camps of snow crystals. There's the good guys and the bad guys. Facets are generally in the bad guys category. So when I'll do a real brief overview of facets, but when a snowflake falls from the sky, it falls as a stellar dendrite traditionally, unless you're falling with a grapple or sleet of some sort, and it's a bit more of a ball form, but it'll fall as a traditional snowflake. Once it's on the ground, it will go in two directions. It'll either go towards a round, which is a more cohesive snow crystal that promotes really good, strong strength in the snowpack, or it'll go towards the way of a facet, and that's basically a short word for deterioration. It'll break down and become have less quality structure, easily fracturable. And the way that facets typically play a role in avalanches is they offer this really, really weak layer of snow once they break down. And the recipe for an avalanche is going to be a strong, really cohesive slab of snow above a weak layer of snow. And then below that weak layer is going to be a bed surface. And a bed surface could be a thick ice layer. It could be another strong slab of snow. It could be the ground. But if we have strong slab over weak slab, that's a recipe for an avalanche. And the weak slab would be the facets. It's not really strong. It's like almost like putting a strong slab would be a textbook, and you're putting a textbook on top of a bunch of potato chips. And the potato chips are the facets. The way the facets form is they have a lot of their moisture sucked out of them from just cold, high pressure stretches where the moisture just gets pulled out through the snowpack, and it leaves these kind of degraded crystals down there. So hopefully that's, yeah, you could go into many hours of discussing the different types of facets and how they form, but just know that they're generally bad, and they generally showcase themselves after bouts of high pressure or no snow for a consistent amount of time. It's when you see a lot of this early season snow in like November. One of the worst things going to happen for the ski season, or at least the early season, is for it to snow in October and then not snow again for another month and a half. That means that probably all the south facing stuff, all the stuff that's in the sun, is going to melt off fully, which is great. And we want it to be nice and clear. But all the stuff on the north facing terrain will be hidden from the sun and be going through this dry spell and just degrading in quality and becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, setting itself up for a bad time when the next big storm comes in and layers a big, strong, consistent slab of snow on top of those facets or the weak layer.
Yeah, it's if you go to one of the snow and avalanche workshops, you can meet people who spend their entire lives like looking at facets. It's like it's fascinating.
That's fun. Stop it.
Okay, we only have time for one more question before we do the giveaway. This one's more of a technology based question. So, do you use airbags, and when do you consider using airbags?
Fabulous question. There's a lot of factors that go into that. I do not. I don't wear an airbag, and it's for a couple reasons, and it's up to the public to determine whether those reasons are good or not. And it's also, maybe it wouldn't impress my mom with my answers, but for me, for ski guiding, I tend to have to carry a lot more kit with me, so I don't like to opt for an airbag pack nearly as much. I do own one, but I don't ski with it frequently because they're just completely empty, a bit heavier. They are a little less efficient at packing stuff. And my biggest reason, though, aside from the weight savings, is probably the mentality aspect of it. I don't want to wear an airbag because I don't want to be put in a situation in the first place where I need an airbag. I think that's the fundamental part. And that might come from an experience thing of me being a bit more knowledgeable on how to navigate that terrain efficiently and safely. But I don't want to even be in the scenario where I've even got the idea that I could get in a slide. If I am getting on top of a slope and I am about to ski it and I'm like, oh yeah, there's like 90% chance this is good and a 10% chance it's slide. I've made so many mistakes getting up to that point. You hear a lot of stories also of folks who in the aftermath and after action report of an accident will say that, they think they might have skied that slope that they got slid on. And they might not have skied it if they didn't have an airbag, but they think that in hindsight, they were like, oh yeah, you know what? I have my airbag. I've got two buddies with me. Looking like it's the bets are in my favor. And I just don't want to even touch that mindset. I'd rather just my mitigation tool is just terrain and selecting the appropriate terrain for the day. And that's where that green, yellow, and red lighting terrain list comes into a factor. Maybe if we're gonna go ski the red, if we were hopping on those red lines, we definitely need an airbag. And then sometimes it's geographical a determination. In Utah, we're not as treed as Colorado. So I find airbags are at a baseline, they'll keep you on top of the snow longer and have a higher chance of ending up on top of the slide. But if you're in a heavily forested area, that can lead to a lot more trauma. So the place that I see airbags, like the perfect use cases, are those big, Alaska terrain, big open terrain. There's no trees that you're going to get rung through, because when an airbag works, it keeps you on top, and that's the fastest moving part of the avalanche. So yeah, I like to use my terrain selection as my mitigation tool, and that's my main reason, I'd say. And then the weight savings is the benefit.
Yeah, I would say that, a large, I forget what percentage it is, a large percent of avalanches, fatalities are trauma, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the burial is what we always think about and stress about and kind of have nightmares about. But the trauma is very real, and an avalanche bag won't really protect that as much. Like, I think
Yeah.
it does help a little bit. Maybe it insulates your head a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
I do wear an airbag.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hate it. It's so heavy. It's so hard to pack around. I think, like, I pretend I don't wear it, right? Like, mentally, like, I think what you said is perfectly right. Like, you have to avoid terrain. You can't go into terrain just saying like I have my parachute,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what the technology does over the next couple of years. There's some new technology coming out that, could do it. I remember back in the day, everyone was wearing the Avalungs, and I don't see those anymore.
Thank God.
Yeah.
That's so
Avalongs
good.
were basically snorkels if you've never seen one.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it'll be
I'm,
interesting to see. And I think the really best thing you can do as a backcountry skier is just try to stay up to date on it. It's hard to be an early adopter in some things.
Mhm.
So I usually am a little slow to pick things up. But
Yeah. There's some new cool tech coming out of Norway called SafeBack, which is, I think, officially on the market this year. There's a company called like Raid Research that is putting them in their packs, and the SafeBack system is not an airbag, but it is a mechanism that's inside your pack that can improve and extend the amount of time that you can be buried under the snow, which is pretty interesting. And it's not an inflatable; it's just something that's in your pack. And from their tests, it seems like it can extend burial times up to 90 minutes, which is pretty crazy. And it sounds like they have a full scientific study coming out later this year on the packs. But so some cool tech is definitely existing. I say
yeah.
if we can go to the moon, we should be able to figure out how to improve our avalanche fatality rates with tech.
Yeah. And that's the
Yeah,
goal.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys for all sticking around for so long. Let's do this giveaway. I got my spinning wheel here. Can you see it?
Oh my gosh, that's so chaotic.
I wish I had like theme music. That's what I should have done. It's just like you
You
can
can
you can
sing.
acapella it if you want as my
No, you can do
co-host.
that. Yeah, you can do that.
All right, who we got? All right, Steven. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry. We got Steven. You get an 1 year of, or you get Will's Avalanche awareness course, as well as some Onyx backcountry swag. John, you're next on the list. We got 3 more winners. Get excited. Gabriella. Thought this thing did have like some cool sounds at least, but it's very quiet.
It just needs the normal spinning sound like that.
I think it has it. Maybe I turned it off. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all good. A little anticlimactic, but that's okay.
You got to add this feature into Onyx.
Another
This is how
feature.
you, yeah, this is how you
All right,
select your ski lines.
William, final one. I think I did 5. I don't know. Doesn't
I think,
matter.
yeah, this will be 5.
All right, Patrick. Oh, Patrick. Sweet. So I will be emailing all the winners after this class and getting you all set up. But yeah, thank you so much for spending your Thursday night with us. I hope you learned something. I definitely did. Um, if you want to learn more about Avalanche education, Will has just hours of him talking about it. If you love his voice, if you love
Sweet,
my
sweet
voice
voice.
and the Onyx Backcountry program, we have. I'm developing our next couple episodes for the next couple months, and I have some really exciting stuff that I'm very excited to talk about with guests like Cody Townsend. We have some other, we're going to do a lot of webinars this year, kind of like this. So if you like this one, tell your friends, come along to the next one. We try to mix them up to make them interesting. So yeah. And with that, Will, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your insight. I cannot wait to hang out with you in person at Utah in a couple weeks. And for everyone in Colorado, I'll be at the CAIC Bash this weekend. So stop by the booth.
Yeah, and then yeah, thanks everybody again. Hopefully that was insightful. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. And yeah, if anybody's going to the Utah Snow and Avalanche workshop, look for me. I'll probably have this yellow hat on, classically. So come say hi, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you out skiing.
All right. Get out there, go skiing, stay safe. Have a great winter. All right. Thanks everyone for stopping by. Thanks, Will.
Yeah,
See you next
thanks
time.
guys.
All right.